Okay, good morning and thank you for being here today. I'm Sergeant Paul Maneg, Media Relations Officer for the Manitoba RCMP. I want to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory. This land is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. Present today are Superintendent Rob Lasson, Officer in charge of the Manitoba RCMP Major Crime Services, and Inspector Sean Pike from the Winnipeg Police Service. Following Superintendent Lasson's update on the Bud Paul investigation, the officers will be available to answer questions. Superintendent.
Good morning. My name is Superintendent Rob Lasson. I'm the officer in charge of Major Crime Services here in Manitoba. Good morning. Today I'm joined by my colleague from the Winnipeg Police Service, Inspector Sean Pike, to provide an update on the Bud Paul homicide. Over the course of the past 2 years, the Manitoba RCMP Major Crime Services, the Winnipeg Police Service, and Manitoba First Nation Police have been conducting a joint investigation into the homicide of Bud Paul, who is a 56-year-old male from Winnipeg. The investigation began on August 7th, 2020, when a concerned coworker contacted the Winnipeg Police Service and requested a well-being check on Bud Paul. Bud Paul failed to attend work and couldn't be reached for a number of days. Winnipeg Police Service officers immediately began their search and launched a significant missing persons investigation. 3 days later, on August 10th, 2020, Bud's burned-out vehicle was discovered on Queen Street in the city of Winnipeg, which elevated the concern of investigators. On August 11th, a body was located by the Manitoba First Nations Police Service, hidden in deep brush in Roseau River, Anishinaabe First Nation, which is approximately 100 kilometers south of Winnipeg. It was later confirmed to be the body of Bud Paul, and the investigation was now deemed to be a homicide. As the investigation spanned across 3 police jurisdictions, a decision was made to begin a joint investigation so that information and resources could be shared more readily. This joint investigation led officers to the town of Neepawa, where surveillance video from a liquor store in Neepawa captured Bud Paul with 2 individuals. The video was from August 1st, 2020, which was the last known sighting of Bud Paul. A plea to the public for any information about the 2 people in the video was issued on October 14th, 2020. On December 17th, 2020, new information led RCMP and Winnipeg police investigators to Bud Paul's last known residence on Hespeler Avenue in the city of Winnipeg, where a search was conducted at this location. On this same date, 2 primary suspects in the homicide were publicly identified as a 36-year-old female and a 39-year-old male. Investigators also established that the suspects and the victim were known to each other. On December 20th, 2020, the female suspect was arrested in Winnipeg and taken into Manitoba RCMP headquarters for questioning. She was later released without charges. Between January 2021 and July 2022, investigators from all 3 police services conducted multiple interviews and follow-up on numerous tips received by the public. During this time frame, forensic evidence was also examined by the RCMP laboratory in Ottawa, as well as a laboratory in the United States. Through the use of the forensic evidence, tips from the public, and various investigative techniques, Aaron Mousseau, a 41-year-old male from Winnipeg, was identified as the primary suspect. Evidence gathered supported the charge of first-degree murder against Aaron Mousseau. He was arrested on August 30th, 2022, and has since been remanded into custody, where he remains. Importantly to note, this was a long and difficult investigation that required specialized units from both the Winnipeg Police Service and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as well as significant investigational support by the Manitoba First Nation Police Service. This partnership between all three agencies is what led to the first-degree murder charge and speaks to the determination and teamwork of all investigators involved. We would like to also thank the public for the tips which were received during the course of the investigation. Finally, we recognize that this was a very lengthy investigation, and we greatly appreciate the public's patience. We hope that this arrest brings some closure to Bud's family. Thank you.
Are there any questions you may have for either officer?
So the 41-year-old man was the 39-year-old man?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Not at that time, no. Throughout any investigation, we follow evidence and leads as we see fit, and at that time it was prudent to make the arrest on the female, and the male wasn't arrested at that time. Well, the challenges of the investigation is that it spanned across multiple police jurisdictions, spanned across Manitoba across geographics, and that's why it was important that we formed that partnership and continue to work together through the file. Do we know where he was killed? We believe we know where he was killed, but I won't be divulging that information today. No way. Pardon me? All I'm going to say is Manitoba.
And what was Bud Paul's relationship?
Well, they were known acquaintances, obviously, but at this time I don't want to go into details as the investigation is ongoing with some outstanding interviews. Well, we do have an established timeline. We do have a belief of a rough timeline when he was killed, but I won't divulge that information here today because it's still before the courts. The vehicle was significant, I will say that in the investigation, and we do have the vehicle on surveillance going throughout Manitoba with these three individuals, but I won't go into any more details on the use of the vehicle. Yes.
Is the female still a suspect?
Not at this time. That's a very good question. We're still working on that.
While they were traveling in this vehicle, did it appear that Bud was there with them willing?
You know, the surveillance, we still got hours and hours of surveillance that we have reviewed and more to come, and we don't have the complete answer to that story.
You said there were a lot of tips from the public. Any idea?
I don't have the exact number, but like I said, I want to extend our thanks to the public. As always, in any investigation, the public is key to solving any investigation. Thank you. That's correct. Well, forensics is a very complicated entity, right? And there's new technology evolving every day. And I don't want to, talk about the specifics of DNA because that's very important to police investigations. But what I can say, it was important enough that we extended out to the United States of America for assistance. No, I can't say anything on that.
What do you know about Bud Paul's life leading up to?
In all due respect for the family, ma'am, I don't want to talk about Bud Paul and his situation at the time. He was arrested in Winnipeg, yes. Again, very good question, but I'm not obliged to answer that right now. Well, it is quite common anytime we have a significant investigation that spans, numerous or varied police services. Myself and Inspector Pike talk regularly all the time in regards to major crimes and homicide investigations, and it's an overall decision between the investigators and management on how we're going to come together and who's going to do what. Thank you.
Are you able to say anything about your
Again,
anybody?
Again, it's still under investigation in all due respect to Mr. Mousseau and his family. I just wanted to provide the details here today. Good?
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes the press conference.